The blood that built Rome. The birth of gladiators, starving beasts and Rome's first deadly spectacles. The Forum Boarium was not yet the bustling Roman marketplace we picture today. In 264 BC, it smelled of damp stone, river mud, and the thick, bitter stench of cattle dung. The Tiber's wind pushed dust across a patch of uneven earth where a crude arena had been carved out. Nothing more than ropes, wooden stakes, and a watching crowd hungry for something they didn't yet understand. 3 pairs of armored men stepped onto the sand. Their helmets were dented, their shields mismatched, their bodies trembling beneath ill-fitted armor. These weren't soldiers. These weren't heroes. They were slaves that dragged here to bleed. Not for fame. Not for honor. But to satisfy the dead. On this day, Decimus Junius Brutus Scaeva had buried his father. And as a final offering, one last gift, he ordered men to fight to the death. A ritual the Romans called a munus, a sacred duty owed to the deceased. Every drop of blood spilled today was meant to carry the departed safely into the afterlife. It was a funeral, wrapped in death. Livy, the famed historian, would one day look back at this moment and mark it as the birth of the gladiator. But in that moment, none of the onlookers cheering or grimacing knew they were witnessing the beginning of something that would one day define Rome's identity. Before we go deeper into the darkness of Rome's earliest spectacles, backhand index pointing right, make sure you're subscribed if you love history that others are too scared to tell. Because what comes next is brutal, forgotten, and carved in blood. The roots of this ritual stretched far beyond Rome. In Campania, particularly Capua, the future training ground of Spartacus, human sacrifice had long been tied to burials. It was believed the spirits of the newly dead demanded life in exchange for peace. Over time, however, something shifted. The dead no longer required the kill. The living demanded the struggle. The Samnites, fierce mountain warriors and Rome's old enemies, hosted their own duels during festivals for the dead. And slowly the death became less important than the spectacle of men fighting, of strength, of agony, of survival. The Romans inherited this evolution and turned it into something colder, more organized, more deliberate. By the late 3rd century BC, these duels were no longer confined to funerals. They slipped into Rome's annual calendar of ludi, public games granted by the Senate. At first, these games honored the gods and invoked divine protection during times of war, plague, or famine. Senators feared Jupiter's wrath, or desperately needed his favor. So they funded the blood. Crowds grew. The rituals multiplied. And Rome realized something dangerous. Violence could unify a city. Spectacle could control it. By the end of the Republic, makeshift wooden arenas were replaced with stone amphitheaters, monuments of brutality that swallowed thousands whole. The funeral rite had become a political weapon. A distraction. A promise. A threat. What began as a quiet offering to the dead had become Rome's most powerful tool over the living. Every drop of blood spilled in the sand now wrote a new law, one not carved on bronze tablets or recited by senators, but written in flesh, stone, and fear. The crowd quieted. A heavy iron gate groaned open, and from the pitch-black shadows of the arena tunnel, the condemned were pushed forward, men whose crimes ranged from rebellion to simply angering the wrong Roman. Across the sand another gate rose. Out stepped a lion. Its ribs jutted through matted fur. Its eyes burned with hunger. Its breath came in slow, rasping growls. This was no duel. This was a sentence. By the 1st century CE, Rome had invented a new category of horror. Damnatio ad bestias, condemnation to the beasts. A punishment designed not only to kill, but to humiliate. The arenas had become laboratories of terror where human fear was displayed like theater. Not all matches were executions. Some were staged hunts, venations, where trained fighters called bestiarii battled wild animals for the crowd's thrill. Mosaics from across the empire show these fighters at the exact moment terror struck. A spear lifted too late. A lion mid-pounce. A panther twisting through a net. In Roman Britain, archaeologists uncovered the pelvis of a man disfigured by the bite marks of a large cat. No story survived, but his bones whispered the truth. He had died in the arena, torn apart for entertainment. Generals used these spectacles for power. Pompey once filled an arena with animals from every corner of the empire, leopards, elephants, bears, turning death into a political advertisement. Even the victims fought back. Seneca wrote of prisoners who killed themselves before entering the arena, choosing control over humiliation. Their rebellion was silent. But Rome heard it. The beasts were starved for days. Their hunger was a tool, sharpened, cultivated, controlled. The point was not simply death. It was degradation, fear, obedience. At the height of Rome's appetite for spectacle, sand was no longer enough. Water became a new stage. Imagine a lake, built by hand. Imagine entire fleets, real ships, real soldiers. Imagine war, recreated purely for entertainment. The drums thundered. War horns roared. And two fleets surged forward, ramming wood against wood, splintering hulls, drowning fighters who had never held a weapon before this day. Children cheered. Senators watched from marble seats. And all of Rome marveled at a performance where hundreds died, only for the show to repeat. This was not war. This was entertainment. And it was only the beginning. Rome had a word for spectacles that bent the line between entertainment and annihilation. Naumachiae, vast, artificial naval battles staged not on distant seas, but in colossal man-made basins carved from the earth by imperial will. They weren't games. They were proof. Proof that Rome's rule over nature, manpower, and death itself was absolute. The first of these spectacles came in 46 BC, when Julius Caesar, hungry to celebrate his military victories with something no Roman had ever seen, ordered a lake dug near the Tiber. Into this enormous pit he placed two full fleets, Tyrian and Egyptian. Not miniature ships, not props. Real warships built to scale. And to row them? To fight and die inside them? Condemned prisoners. Thousands of them. Men who knew they were not performers, but fuel. The battle was fought with live blades, real arrows, and real consequences. No retakes. No mercy. Rome watched as water turned red and Caesar smiled, because the message had been delivered. Rome did not just conquer rival nations. Rome conquered reality. His heir Augustus took this brutal invention and amplified it. In 2 BC he ordered a basin so immense, 1,800 by 1,200 Roman feet, that it required its own aqueduct, the Aqua Alsietina, to keep it filled. On those waters, 30 full warships clashed at once, each packed with criminals condemned to die in the most theatrical slaughter the empire could imagine. People traveled from provinces across the Mediterranean for a glimpse. Crowds roared. Bodies sank. And Augustus proved that the empire could marshal men, engineering, and nature itself like instruments in a symphony of domination. But Rome wasn't finished. In AD 52, Emperor Claudius wanted something grander, something no emperor before him dared attempt. He drained a mountain lake, Lake Fucine, reducing it to a colossal arena of mud, timber, and blood. And there, standing before thousands of fighters condemned to reenact a naval war they could not win, he received the greeting that would become immortal. Morituri salutant. Those who are about to die salute you. Whether the line was scripted or spontaneous, it captured the exact role these men played, offerings to spectacle. Lives burned for applause. By the time the Colosseum opened under Titus, Naumachiae had become symbols of imperial excess. Some historians believe Titus used Augustus Basin for naval battles during the Colosseum's inaugural celebration. Others argue that under Domitian, the Colosseum's arena itself was flooded, transformed into a miniature sea where scaled-down maritime wars unfolded under torchlight. Even under Trajan, nearly a century after Caesar's first lake, the tradition refused to die. He constructed the Naumachia Vaticana in AD 109, a massive flooded expanse near Vatican Hill built for one purpose, to let thousands die beautifully. Because in Rome, death was never private. It was policy. By AD 80, Rome had discovered a darker appetite. The crowd didn't just want battles, they wanted stories. And emperors delivered by resurrecting mythological tortures in real life. During the midday break between gladiator matches, when the crowd hungered for fresh shock, executioners dragged out the condemned and forced them to play roles from myth. Not symbolically. Not artistically. They died exactly as the legends died. The poet Martial, an eyewitness to the Colosseum's opening games, described an Orpheus figure entering the arena holding a lyre, attempting to charm wild beasts. But unlike the myth, where nature bends to Orpheus' song, Rome let the beasts tear him apart. One of the most grotesque reenactments was the tale of Pasiphae, the Cretan queen cursed with an unnatural desire for a bull. According to rumor, the Romans forced either a woman, or a condemned man dressed as one, into the arena and unleashed a bull upon them. The performance blurred the line between tragedy and cruelty, between story and torture. The crowd exploded with approval. Fire became another stage. Victims were dressed in the tunica molesta, a pitch-soaked garment designed to ignite instantly. Their deaths were framed as the martyrdom of Mucius Scaevola, the hero who held his hand in flames to prove loyalty to Rome. But in the arena, loyalty didn't matter. Innocence didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was the spectacle of a body, burning for the empire's pleasure. The Christian writer Tertullian, living under the shadow of Roman persecution, described these horrors bitterly. Victims tied to posts. Limbs roasted. Men turned into living torches while crowds laughed. "We are mocked as kindling men," he wrote, men who existed only to ignite the imagination of a bloodthirsty public. These weren't stories. They were warnings. And everyone watching knew it. Each reenacted myth, each naval massacre, each flaming martyr turned the Roman arena into a monstrous fusion of ritual and statecraft. Rome didn't execute the condemned, it displayed them. It didn't punish enemies of the state, it performed them. The Colosseum became the empire's greatest stage where death was choreography, pain was narrative, and cruelty was applause-worthy. Rome's spectacles revealed something profound about its soul. The empire was never just conquering territories. It was conquering the meaning of life and death. And it demanded the world watch as it did so. Even now, centuries later, every debate about violent entertainment, every controversy about spectacle over humanity, echoes the same question Rome forced upon its people. How much cruelty will we accept? If it entertains us? Which spectacle? Funeral duels, bestial hunts, Naumachiae, or mythological tortures? Best exposes Rome's absolute command over life itself? Share your thoughts below. As Seneca wrote after leaving a Roman arena, "I come home more greedy, more ambitious, more self-indulgent, yes, even more cruel, because I have been among human beings."